Yay! So welcome everyone. This is the Drupal Usability meeting for October 18th, 2016. And we have 5 agenda items. I think we'll go in order as posted on our Slack channel, drupal.slack.com, and the UX channel. And the first one is the outstanding issue to finalize place blocks module to real core module.
Actually, could we not do that one first, and I can get a sandbox up and running?
I want to demo that. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Sorry.
No problem. Do we want to do default content then first?
Yeah. Why don't we do that? That's an easy one.
Yeah. Kevin, you want to take that away, or?
Right. Sure. So update on default content is that we are. So I did a little bit of work. Roy asked me to do a little bit of work on the queue to kind of merge a couple of the issues together. And actually what I ended up doing is I ended up taking the issue that Lowry had created for the default theme in the experimental install profile. He had a parent issue for that, for creating the experimental profile. So it made sense to me to have that remain the parent issue, and I made the sub-issues add default content to the install profile, to the experimental install profile, and add the theme to the experimental install profile. So those are both children of experimental profile to core issue. As Angie and Gabor mentioned a second ago, we do now have meetings scheduled for this. So there's going to be a kind of what I was calling a Pacific and an Atlantic meeting, because we have people like Lee who are in Australia, and also we have people in Europe. So it really made sense to have sort of alternating meetings, one for the sort of European/American group, and one for the sort of Pacific/American. And I'm going to kind of attend both meetings and shuttle between them to keep everybody updated on what's happening. And then in today's meeting, when we have it, I have a few issues around the content model to bring up and hopefully hash out, so we can proceed with actually sort of building the model out in the sandbox, and then populating it with some real with some example content. So that's pretty much it. So like as Gabor said, there's a meeting in 2 hours time from now. First one. Anybody have any questions on that, or?
No questions. +1 though. That sounds great.
Keith, hopefully you'll be able to make that one.
Yeah, I was just going to say, looking forward to getting involved. As you know from our chat at Dublin, very willing to help out how we can, where we can. Yeah,
awesome. That's great.
Yeah, any pointers you can give us, and I'll be there later.
Awesome. Thanks a
lot.
Yeah, I posted a summary of all the core meetings today on groups.drupal.org/note/51455, which is also promoted to the group's front page right now. So if somebody is unsure when certain meetings are, then it outlines things like the usability meetings, the default content meeting, the new user-facing core theme meeting, etc., which are in some ways intertwined. So feel free to get involved.
I think one more to add to that is the bi-weekly ideas queue review meeting. The first one of those is on Thursday at 12 p.m. Pacific, and whatever that is, every other time zone. I'll get that in the Drupal 8 calendar and add it to the blog post. I don't know what those are going to go like yet, but we'll find out. So yeah. Cool. So I'm ready to demo my place block thing now whenever we're cool with that.
Awesome. I'm ready to look at it.
Okay. Let's give it a shot. So I'm going to do the share screeny thing, and I'm going to do the welcome to 8.3.x. So are you seeing this window?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I just hit extend. All right, so this is a stock install of Drupal 8.3, which is currently in development, and I have enabled the place block module. By the way, the issue in question is what? Oh, it helps if I spell things right sometimes. This one. It's drupal.org/node/2739075. And so the overall crux of this is graduate the place blocks module to a real core module. So as a bit of background, in 8.2, we added the place blocks module, and it's an experimental module. What it does is it adds a new menu item thing here. When you click place block, it pops open all of the regions on in your theme and gives you these little plus icons that you can hover over, and you can say, I want to add a block right there. And you can say, place the user login block, because why not? Whatever. Actually, that's a bad one because I won't see it while I'm logged in, but at any rate. So really handy because we can use this in lieu of the old way, which is you have to go to, well, first of all, you have to know that you go to structure, and then you go to block layout, and then you see this thing that doesn't look anything like the front end of your site, and then you're like, I don't know, what's featured top? And so you're sort of like, place a block there maybe, and then you have two windows, you're going back and forth. There is this subtle link that lets you at least sort of highlight what's what, but it is not showing your actual site content. So basically it's just kind of like a very poor experience, and so the place block module makes it much better. So we would like to make the place block module a primary way of placing blocks because it just makes a lot more sense than the current UI. However, when we made this issue back in the day, we ended up with some must-have and some should-have stuff that were blocking it from going to a full core module. So the first is ensure place blocks hover styling meets accessibility guidelines. We talked about this the other day internally within the Acquia team. We believe that this is addressed because we've literally just copied and pasted the existing contextual link styling. So you can see that that also has the same color gray, highlights gray. So if we do have an accessibility problem with that, we need to fix it everywhere, not just on place block. So I think we're okay on that. Then there's this idea of like figure out where the code should live. So should it be a separate module? Should it be incorporated in the block module? Is it something you can turn on and off? These kinds of things. But that's a little bit premature because we also have to figure out if we actually like the way it works and this kind of thing. So the two items on the must-have list that are related to UX are, one, we want to validate the design with user testing. The place block module got a nice facelift thanks to Emily and various other people who worked on this. It looks great, much better than it did before. There's like this little jaggy thing with the Ajax spinner thing, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. But for the most part, this looks great, and I think it's useful. But we haven't really vetted this design in front of other people, at least not that I've seen reported back to the issue queue if we've done that. So we need a volunteer to who has access to ideally a both a Drupal person and a non-Drupal person, say, so that we can validate that if someone can figure out how to place a block on a page. I suspect they're going to get stuck right here, and they're not going to even see this thing because we know from usability testing that people don't see anything over here. So that's an issue. Which brings me to the second thing that's in this list, which is discuss where to ultimately place the trigger for this in-place blocks functionality. Because at the moment, what place blocks module does is just shoves an icon right here, which is valid. I mean, that's one way to do it. But the problem is if, like, say, panels IPE also wanted to shove an icon here, and if, like, context modules to shove an icon here, suddenly this toolbar is getting very full. You know, we can't actually smush it all down in a mobile context and stuff like that. And so, you know, one thing we have at our disposal is we have, you know, this idea of edit mode, so we could somehow, you know, display it that way. When the what the heck is it called now? Settings tray module is enabled, which is also another experimental module we added in 8.2. That gives us this concept of an edit mode. So you can kind of say, I want the site in edit mode, and then it can show up there. Probably should also be on the left, but at any rate. And that's a little bit better because then it's contextually relevant. It's like, oh, okay, I'm editing stuff. So now if I place a block, it's like editing this current page that I'm on right here. But that module is not required, and we can't guarantee that it'll be there. So we still need to solve this triggering problem regardless. So I kind of feel like we should have a design discussion first about this, because there's kind of very little value in doing usability testing when we know that this is going to be blocker number 1. And so I maybe don't know, but I very highly suspect that that's going to be the first problem, is people won't even see this icon to do anything with it. So yeah, so that's kind of the setup, and I'm wondering if anyone has thoughts on this topic.
I have some thoughts, but I'm curious to hear what other people think about the problem. You know, before I launch in.
I got a couple of thoughts as well, and I won't speak on my name. I'll speak on the people from, stakeholders that work in the company where I work. They would think like, okay, I click place a block, and what does that plus sign means? I mean, do I have to click? Do I have to do something like more like on the UX side? I think we need to think that the users are stupid. So I don't know how friendly you could make it if I give it to any people. I mean, I got a client and I build a Drupal site for them, and then I put this functionality, and now what? I mean, you can do the site building part, but okay, how do we help them? Is there a way that we can make it a little bit more clear for people to add blocks? I mean, the functionality is great. I mean, I have no concerns about it. I just have concern about these small pluses, and are those pluses signs? Are those like for screw or?
Right. That's
yeah.
true.
So they're all really, really good points. But but we kind of do something. We do this a lot in the Drupal community, where we sort of we raise a UX issue that we think will be there before we ever do a test. And I think there was a little bit of testing. Emily actually did some testing on this, I want to say, and people didn't, I don't believe, had that issue. But again, and Angie mentioned that there still is a do more comprehensive testing task that's part of this. So I think we should defer judgment on whether we think that users are going to be able to discover these things until after we really test that and we validate that is legitimately a problem.
Real quick, Emily, could you speak to the testing that you did some testing at Midwest Developer Summit? Is that true?
Yeah, I tested with I think 5 different people who were content editors or were completely new to Drupal, and I was surprised no one seemed confused about the plus sign because people had already clicked that place block trigger, and so they knew what they were doing, and once the plus signs appeared, they just assumed that was for doing that. At least that's how they explained it to me as they were doing it. They did have a really hard time finding the place block trigger. So only one person actually easily found that. And a couple people did get completely stuck, and I had to point them to it.
Did any
Interesting.
recommended alternative triggers come out of that discussion?
So people were looking when they had already clicked edit, they were actually expecting to see something in the interface for it, kind of like we have the contextual links already, and so they weren't expecting to even have to click a trigger. So that was one thing people explained. So once they were already in that edit mode, they didn't expect that they would need to do something else to then add blocks. They expected that would just be a natural thing that would occur in edit mode.
Oh, cool. That's interesting. Yeah,
And
I
then
see.
if, yep.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say that's really interesting that they said that, because that kind of because my assumption has been, we discussed over the last few days, was that enable the place blocks as soon as you turn on edit mode, and what you're saying seems to reinforce that.
Mm-hmm.
So just so I'm clear, you turn on edit mode, in addition to these little doodads, you see the plus icons everywhere, and it pops open like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that type of interaction is what people were expecting. They didn't expect that placing blocks would be separate from editing.
Gotcha. We can try that. I mean, that's a really simple patch to do. The only problem is that stock core does not have the concept of edit mode. Well, that's not true.
But it does. It's just because when you click the edit link in stock core, you get it. First of all, it's on the right-hand side, but then it exposes all the contextual links, and it would just then expose all of the place block links as well.
So but I guess what I'm saying is it's possible to set up Drupal without either quick edit or settings tray module enabled, but with whatever this functionality is enabled. So I wonder if we need to do something like, okay, get out of edit mode, get out of place block mode, go back. I wonder if we need to do something like place blocks hinged off of a block quick, contextual link, or something, so we could trigger it from here without.
Yeah.
And then if toolbar, or not toolbar, sorry, quick edit module, or one of them
is that you're not placing a block in the block. You're placing a block in the region, and then you have to expand the regions. So yeah, it's tricky.
In my mind, it would say place block, and then you click it and you get this whole shebang thing happening.
Just place block off of every single contextual link?
Off of every block contextual link, yeah. Because I can't think of another way to do it, because you can't just stick contextual links on every region, because some of them you can't even see, right? Like there's a right sidebar region, there's nothing visible.
So if we were going to do that, my thought would be, why not just go all the way to the thought that that we had discussed at various different points in the past, and have something that simply says contextual link that says place block before and place block after, and then you sidestep the whole weights problem entirely, because you just told it that you want to put a block before the one that you're selecting from, or after it, and it automatically is going to stick it wherever that is.
Yeah, that's one of the should have items, is figuring that out. Because right now, when you place a block, I actually forget how it works.
Well, we don't. We've kind of hand waved it away. We have no way of dealing with weights at all.
Right. Yeah. Which is kind of a problem. Right?
Yeah, that was the second biggest confusion point. People kept trying to place blocks and then didn't know why they were in the wrong place.
Right. Because I guess it puts it right at the bottom, but it's confusing because when I clicked it, I was on the top. So one thought was, when you're in place block mode, that there would be one of these between each. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like a plus here and a plus here and a plus down here. So you could add it and it would automatically set the weight correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this would be nice to test because the top bar of the page is already very distracting with all the plus signs, and if all the other blocks get plus signs in between them, then
That's true. That's going to be like,
worse.
here a plus, there a plus. Everybody gets a plus. Yeah.
Yeah, so these are kind of things that I think would be nice to test because, like,
Yeah, because if you go to a site like Drupal.org, I don't know, but I'm assuming this is a
Yeah.
block, that's a block, this is a block, that's a block. So it'd be like plussy, plussy, plus, plus, dot, plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the contextual link solution doesn't. I mean, gets rid of that problem, but it does add stuff into the contextual link. Go ahead.
One thing that people did expect that would help if you only had the one plus area for a region, people expected that they would click that and then that whatever was generated there, they would be able to drag into place.
Mm-hmm. That's what I want. Because if you could just go, whoop, like, problem solved, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that totally.
Anyone super awesome at jQuery? Because I feel like that's not that hard, but I also don't know anything about JavaScript, so it's easy for me to say.
Well,
yeah, that'd be super easy.
Seemingly, it's not that hard, but the problem that we always encounter when we talk about this is
accessibility.
That's fine for the page that I'm looking at, but what about the weight of this block on the other pages? So imagine that I have 10 blocks in this region, but it so happens that I'm looking at the home page on which I have only one block visible, right? Dragging the block that I just put in below the block that I have visible is I mean, that block could be anywhere, positioned anywhere between those other 10 blocks.
That's true, but when you navigate to a page where it's messed up, then you just repeat the process.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like say on my homepage, I only have this block and I didn't have tools. So I dragged admin below search. And now I'm on this page and it's like below tools. I'll be like, hey, that's not what I wanted. And then do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that that's a fine interaction pattern. But I'm just sort of channeling the objection that I always hear from like the Chris Vanderwaters of the world who say, oh, well, you know, there's all kinds of different contexts, and you know, the one that you're looking at is not necessarily the one that, you know, is even the most common necessarily on your site. So, but right. As for me, I think it's fine. It's like I agree with what you said. You know, if you go to the other page and you see the block isn't where you want it to be, you just change it, you move it.
Okay. So at any rate, I'm not sure what to do. I guess, so one, it sounds like we did already do usability testing. We identified a few issues. One, no one can find this, except for one very intelligent person, I guess. Two, we know that the plus signs aren't confusing because they're in context, but if you change the trigger to just be like generic edit, I don't think this would be obvious anymore. Like I think
I
think
we need to test that.
Plus sign doing in the middle of nowhere, you know. But it sounds like one really thing is just when edit mode is triggered with quick edit module, in addition to what the edit mode is doing in both versions, settings tray as well as quick edit, trigger the place block functionality and see what happens. Because that might be useful as a patch to just test quickly and see. I think we'll quickly see if that works or doesn't work. And then we need a plan for what to do for sites that don't have quick edit or settings tray. And my dumb idea is just add place blocks to the contextual links, but that's probably not exactly the best way. But it sounds like another thing that came out of the usability testing was also this drag and drop problem. And I've seen a few different issues going out, like set block weight during place block flow, so it's always on top. It's like
I think that was committed, wasn't it?
No, I don't think so. It still needs work. How does it work? 1 second, I'm trying to figure this out. Hello? I have no idea.
Yeah, I thought this was a bug that got fixed. That's weird. Yeah, I guess it's still open.
Got marked RTBC, and then it failed tests. And then Boyan said, this looks great. So this might need just like a very simple reroll or something like that. Okay. So if anyone wants a very simple reroll, node 27905 would be great to help with that, because that apparently is going to solve our weighting issue. Although it's not clear how it does that.
But
I mean,
it's
it
not gonna
gives you the
solve
opportunity
the
to
weighting
populate
issue.
a query string, but it doesn't. It's not clear how an end user would do that.
Yeah, I think.
It doesn't.
Yeah, I think that issue was just to get it started so it would be possible to do the follow-up.
I see. Okay. Yep. And yeah, but it concerns. So this looks fine as like a starting point. But then it felt like we were also doing things like add weight to the block configuration form. Doing various hacks to avoid touching the drag and drop problem, which are not necessarily good for usability. You know what I mean? So in other words, this proposal is that when you click the plus icon and you click place block, that the way we're going to solve this whole thing is we're just going to put weight with a drop down here. And while that's fine as like a workaround for accessibility concerns with drag and drop, I don't think we want that to be the primary interaction. Like, I think we want the primary interaction for, people who can do it to be like to, click and drag this up. So
one thing that I had, go ahead, Angie.
No, I'm done.
Yes. So one thing that I had considered is that, you mentioned like we could get somebody with some fancy JavaScript skills and we could start getting drag drop in here, but has got the patch for the clicking of the place block to open in the settings tray, and my thought was that once the person has clicked to place block, and then the settings tray has opened, and then they've chosen a block from the settings tray, that rather than the settings tray going away at that point, that the contents of the settings tray just gets replaced with blocks in that region with table drag. We already have table drag in the settings tray for other things like menu, etc. So, and we've done work on that to make it work. So, if you were to have the block region, the region that you just placed the block in, with a list of the blocks, tray just use table drag to put the block in the position that you wanted it to be, then we have this sort of dragability part, right? It's not admittedly on the actual page, but it's far better than the solution with just sticking the weights drop down into the other form. And I think that's not like a huge patch either, right? I imagine.
Probably. So you're just saying in any given, let's do this one. So in any given block, you would also see whatever its region is, you would see this.
Yes, exactly. You would just see just the blocks for the blocks inside of that region, and then you would have the ability to drag, and that would be a second step in the place block process. So you hit place block, the settings tray slides in with your pick the block, right? And then after you pick the block, you would see.
Now currently that doesn't
the block.
happen.
Then you would see the
modal, right? You get
yeah.
Modal. So you place.
Yeah, but Ted has a.
And then here, like pretend this is in the settings tray. Here, down here somewhere, you would see the positioning.
Yeah, you would see the actual.
Okay,
the
well that sounds
blocks
like
in the region.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like improvement. Like just pick a number from 1 to 10 with no context. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the advantage of it is that it also completely gets away from that other problem that we mentioned a minute ago, which was I don't know what the context is for other pages, because because when this happens, it's going to show you all the blocks that are in that region for all pages, not just the page that you're on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like that. So I'm gonna take some notes. If we could switch to an agenda item that does not involve me talking or sharing my screen for a minute, that would be useful, because I like to not have technical debt after meetings. So I would like to just write up a comment in this issue about what we talked about, if that's okay.
Sorry.
You go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Okay. I was just going to say that maybe the place block, the problem with the place block menu item, I mean, it looks like really a menu item, and you really don't see it as a trigger for something. Maybe just changing. Probably I just missed some previous conversations, but maybe converting it to a button, it could look more like something is going to happen when you click here. It's not a menu. It's just a quick idea.
So kind of like we did with the edit button here, like.
No, the right one. Or what?
I know, but like, so in other words, style it differently, like we did with the edit mode, to make it clear that it's a toggle instead of a place that's going to navigate you somewhere, or what do you mean when you say transfer this to a button?
Yeah, exactly this. I mean, exactly the item, this one on the right. I mean, it's exactly identical. The styles are exactly identical as any other item in the menu. So I guess that it's a menu item. It's not a button to do anything. That's
a really good point.
For me, it's like a secondary menu. You know, like the user menu or something like that. I don't see it like a trigger for starting something in that page. For me, it's leaving the page.
Yep, that totally makes sense. How would you style it differently then? Do you mean a button like this kind of style of button?
Like the blue one, the rounded blue one. For example, I don't know, just an idea. And also maybe just changing the color, maybe with the blue, or I don't know exactly which are the limitations for the colors, but just at least not being not using exactly the same colors as the menu items.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. It's a design problem that needs to be solved to make it, because I mean, we have the one toggle on the page for the edit, and it feels like that should be unique, because it changes the entire mode that you're in. But maybe we should have some kind of a sub toggle. I almost feel like, Christina, that it should be like, the little toggle switches that you slide back and forth in iOS.
I don't know exactly what you're talking about.
They're like the little green toggles when you toggle something on and off.
Yeah.
You slide them side to side.
That's right. Yeah, it could be.
I'm seeing that I don't know if you ever went to like sites like Team Forest or something like that they have, like when you go to live preview for a theme or for whatever they sell, you get like an orange button at their top bar, like to hide this frame or hide this bar or something like that. That is styled totally different than the elements that they have on that bar. It's because basically it's just it does another functionality. It's not related to any admin stuff in this case.
What was that called that does that?
I think it's on. I'm trying to find a link, but
Theme Forest.
Yeah, I think it's on Theme Forest. When you go and open a theme or something that they sell, just go to a website. I don't know for some reason.
Like a demo. After you go to the demo version.
Yeah.
So in general, place block is kind of a subtask of edit, right? So
like if you could somehow always ensure that edit mode was there, then that would be the no-brainer place to put it. But we can't do that right now because it's experimental A, and B, everyone wants to turn off everything all the time. So that's what makes it tricky, is because it's like we have to solve two different design problems. Theme Forest, you're not doing so good here. What's going on?
Yeah, it's not loading. It's not loading for me either.
You know why? Because like all
But
cycles are hitting at the same time. And it's like, help! No! All the melting. Anyway.
Yeah, I think
Well, boom! All right, sorry. Anyway, I shouldn't say that online.
Okay, I found one example I'll put here on the chat.
Yeah.
It's something like that. If you see that top bar where they have like the buy now button, it's something like it just pops out because it's a functionality inside the page. I mean, in this case, I think that if someone enables that module, wants to see that button. I mean,
we just got to be careful because if you have an orange button and a blue button, and, you know what I mean? Like
it comes to the design stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's nothing about that. There's nothing about the button there that indicates that it's a toggle. That's why I like the iOS, style one, because it clearly indicates I'm toggling something on and off. I'm not pushing a button that's going to execute some function.
Yeah, like a switch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that idea as well.
But is it used on Android, or is people used to that? Will people recognize it?
I think it's pretty
similar on Android. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
then it's great.
Yeah, Angela, you have the first on the Android. You have the first example on the first line, on the first row at the right, on the right.
On the right.
To the right is the configuration part on.
Oh yeah.
People are used to that as well.
Yeah. So something that sort of straddles the gap between those two would be good.
So we are quickly running out of time.
I noticed that. I did try and cut us off like 10 minutes ago. But. Cool. But anyway, those are all really helpful comments. So I'll write this up in the issue queue. I guess the next thing we might need is someone to do, I don't know, a rounded design around the toggle stuff, or in all three modes. One is just place block, one is place block with quick edit, one is place block with quick edit and settings tray, which is a whole lot of annoyance. Or we could do something really simple, like just color the thing blue for now so that it looks different than the rest, and then people could actually find it, and then we could do some light usability testing. But I feel like we already did some light usability testing, or even some heavy usability testing, like 5 people who are content authors. Like, that's great. Ordinary Drupal. So I feel like we already have data from that. We should fix that first before we do another round of usability testing, in my opinion.
Right. At the very least, we should just have an issue that's like float the place block button to the left in quick edit mode.
Well,
or just
I think we
float it to the left engine.
Figure out what to do with the place block trigger, because we need to try a few different things, I think. There's at least 4 or 5 ideas that came out on this call. So.
Yeah, so if we can come up with a few different designs, then I could get some people together so we can do some more testing on that specific interaction.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Because that kind of is blocking everything else. We can't do final usability testing until the design is finalized, obviously. And we also can't really dictate where it's going to live until we know what it's going to look like and what parts it's going to interact with, etc. I think I'll also make a dedicated issue. I think there already are some, but anyway, do a little bit more digging on the weight issue, because that came up in usability testing as well, and see if there's a way. It's only classified as it should have, but it's kind of like a really should have. Like, it's really like, if you add this block and it's not in the right place that you want it, you really are SOL. Like, you have no way to get it out of there, right?
Yeah, and no one had any idea of where to go after that to move it.
So I'm thinking escalate that.
That's a big fail.
Yeah, I think we should escalate
be
that to a must-have, honestly. I think it's not acceptable for it just to stick it wherever. And then in order to fix this, you'd have to go to some completely different place in order to, it doesn't make any sense. So those would be my recommendations. And then maybe we can talk about this again in a couple weeks when we have some stuff to show.
I'll take my colleagues, Drupal 7 developers, to play with it. Or like not Drupal 8. Oh. Yep.
Cool.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. Sorry that took so long. Appreciate it though. So, Gabor, could you maybe talk about media library?
We can talk about media library. I think there's several people who are interested in the status page, so that may be more
Sure,
interesting.
why don't we talk about status page because we have the actual developer here to talk about that, and then media library maybe for
Media
tonight's
designer.
call. Does that work?
Yeah.
All right.
So what's the status of the status?
Oh, okay. Sorry, just.
So let's say the number of the status page issue is 665790.
Yeah, and I know that Christina is also involved on that on that issue. Basically, to make a quick recap, I'll just go. Just going. I don't know if you see my screen now.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Actually, it's 311 comments, and I started working on this in Dublin. We thought that it was like pretty much done, but then a lot of comments, a lot of feedbacks that I really appreciate it just came, and it has been like impossible to finish this issue. There's a main design just over here somewhere. Nope. Where are they? Okay, it's something like this. In the last comments from Laurie were that I don't know if we really need to use a new template file only for that status page report. And of course, a lot of classes are just being, it's like a salad of classes in one of the files. There are a couple of icons missing on the last, patch. But I think, okay, Gabor said that it's 7th birthday of this issue, so it's quite long. Basically, what the point of this entire issue is just get it done quick so we can go and play with mobile stuff for the admin theme, because here we're playing with really big elements, and I mean, I'm not like for changing media queries and stuff like that, only for this status report, and then we need to do again and again and again for each page that we did on mobile. I think that Christina will have like more detailed description of this since she designed the entire status report.
Well, I think actually I'm not sure if there's anything else about the design or anything else that I can comment here. The status of the status page is stacked. I don't know how to say it in English. It's just stopped because Laurie and Joel are disagreeing on how to implement the templates. I think it's the last step, and they were not on the same page with that. So I think all the other comments, the previous comments, were already solved or were, I'm not sure anyway, but I think they were just fine enough to just keep going and finish it.
So can you pass it on to the Twig Slack for feedback on what others think about the good way to implement it? Because
Okay, I will do
it's
it.
hard to tell from here who's right, honestly, which is part of the reason it's stuck where it is.
Okay, I will pin them.
That would be nice. Thank you.
I think I don't know if you can, if you have anything other things to add to the redesign.
No, I'm just installing the patch on so I can show you like the status of the last patch.
But I think Laurie just made some more patches after it, isn't it? And he added some more things. He changed some stuff after it. After your last one, I mean. Well, I'm not the best person to know how the patches are because I wasn't working with it. So probably you know better than me. But anyway, I'm not sure if we can solve anything now.
Yeah, and also if it's a template change, is there really even going to be a user visible kind of component of that we're going to actually see on the screen? I mean, I recall looking at this in Dublin, and there were lots of changes being made, but nothing really actually. I mean, it was changes that were underneath the surface of how things were structured.
Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe we should just move on to the next agenda item and sort of like hope that we can get Lowry and Joel to agree or to at least come to a resolution.
Yeah, I will try to ping them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if there are no other things there, then yeah, let's move on. So media library. So then none of the folks that are currently working on the media library are in this meeting, but I emailed them for what their concerns are. And I think that, so what I got is the person who's working on it believes that it needs 1 or 2 weeks to finalize the prototype to implement some missing pieces. And then look at implementing a clickable version so that like they can be tested once we agree on what's there. And they have some developers who are interested in implementing that. So if we agree that the prototype is good, then they can jump and start working on developments for a prototype that can be tested, or that we can get feedback on. Yeah. So I think the main thing is defining on what the goal is, which I think Angie tried on the issue. What are the MVP requirements that the design needs to meet?
Yeah. So based on what I see in the prototype that exists in the issue right now, it looks as if they are trying to design to all of the things that people have put into the issue as as nice to haves, and and they need to descope the design process down to what the minimally viable version is. So, or at least that's my concern, or my suggestion would be that they could descope it and get things to be a little bit simpler.
Yeah, I think that the reason that it could be a good topic to discuss for us is because then we can like figure out what that scope is, at least in terms of from the UX team's perspective, and then obviously there's the media team would have a say in that too, I guess, based on what they think. But there's at least the two perspectives then could merge instead of just like random requests on issue, which are hard to tell which to obey and which to not obey, right? And just for reference, the issue number is 2796001. So how can we help define the MVP then?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I think that the minimal feature set that Angie defined in the summary is pretty good. I don't know whether other people agree with that or not.
So that says accessible to content authors, not just content administrators. Allow users to see a listing of previously uploaded images when adding a new image. Visual representation of images, for example, a grid of thumbnails. Allow selecting from a previous image when inserting an image into the WYSIWYG editor, but not regress accessibility features of current image UI. For example, required alternative text. Provide basic filtering options, for example, search by file name. And simple enough spec to implement by January. Yes.
Yeah, I think that hits all of the fundamental needs. All the other things are like their enhancements. There's lots of really cool, nice functionality was mentioned all through the issue, and those can be, you know, follow-up issues. But yeah, I mean, does anybody else feel like that there's something that like that doesn't capture, that like really needs to be in a media library that like is absent from that summary?
Do we need to specify only images or videos as well?
Yeah, so that's the only question I have, is all of this is about images, but there's other potential media, right?
Yeah, I mean, just for the name, like media library, a lot of people could expect video as well. That's my question.
So they're listed, they're going to be listed, right? But there's a design question, and I think this is something that they really, that the people who are working on the prototype, which is awesome so far, need to explore, which is if we visualize this as a grid of thumbnails, what do they look like if there is no thumbnail? What if it's an audio file? What if it's a something that is neither an image or a video that has a thumbnail that can be added? What if it's a PDF, for example? What does the thumbnail look like then? Design problem that they haven't really resolved, which I think that they probably need to resolve.
I don't know if it's quite important to know how the thumbnail is going to look like, but I think would be like more important how are they going to organize the different types of content. If they're going to put like in a tabs organization, like images one tab, videos another tab, documents just call it documents right now, so PDF, Word documents or whatever in another tab, or they're going to put it like all mixed. When you see, for example, an iOS media album, you see like videos and voice notes and everything. Like, I don't know if voice notes, but videos and images like mixed.
Well, I see where you're going with that, and I totally agree that, like, you know, it would be great to have a tab structure. That would probably mean that we would need to add some kind of taxonomy to accompany this, that we could group things into, because you can't do it just by MIME type, because there's multiple different types of image, multiple different types of video, etc. But I think that, you know, as an MVP, if you just had, like you said a second ago, everything in one big group as it is now in, say, the Files tab in Drupal 8 core, then at the very least, if you had the filtering capability to, as is mentioned in Angie's summary, if you had the ability to filter on file name or filter on file type or MIME type or whatever, that at least gives you the ability to surface to the top what what the thing is that you're looking for. But I think I would be with you that we should, as a follow-up issue, at the very least, add the some kind of taxonomy or tabbing or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Does anyone else feel that that needs to be like in the MVP, that we need to have like a tab structure, or almost like a folder structure?
I mean, if you see it on the issue, and you put a WordPress like screenshot, and they have it like in the tab system. I'm seeing it now. But yeah, for an MVP, it will be nice to just to have the library after that, just to follow up, and it can be done easily. And yeah, of course, if you can filter like by name, by file name, but at least you can put filter by extension, by file type, or whatever. I mean, the possibilities are basically endless.
Yeah, and like if you have them all as filters, then you can cross-filter for things that have some name, but they may be PDFs and audio and whatever, and you may actually want to use all kinds of different types. So it depends on the use case, maybe.
Yeah, you can combine 2 or more filters if you need. So it's...
Yeah, the larger context this is happening in is the Media in Drupal 8 initiative, which is 27867.5. So that also proposes some underlying technology improvements to move media entity into core to support this interaction. But it's a lot to achieve in the remaining time. So we'll need to be diligent in terms of what the goals are, and so that we can set up something that's achievable in the time.
Yeah. Thus the need to keep the scope as minimal as possible on this part, which is supposed to be supposedly the easier part.
Yeah, so I think we are out of time. And Angie also needed to leave, so we're not going to talk about idea issues, I think, anymore. Any other things that people wanted to bring up or want to bring up next week, maybe, to preset some of the agenda items now? Something you wanted to talk about, but we didn't have time, just to make sure we have time next week.
I don't know if this issue could just, I think it does as a usability issue, since it's a string thing. It's just the wording doesn't make like sense to a lot of people. I'll just put the link here in the chat. I was working on that in Dublin with I forgot his name, and basically on the install module page we have like 2 different the same sentence that does 2 different things, like add a module or install a module. So but it goes like deeper for some people, which when you install a module on the next screen, you got like enable your newly added modules or install a new one, and a lot of people want to change the install module to add a module, and it's like a roller coaster at the time. So I don't know if you can put it on the agenda for next week if anyone wants to discuss that, and maybe native English speakers are going to be the best to change those words.
Sure. We also have Ifrit probably tomorrow morning, so in the meeting in 11 hours, and she's very keen on textual improvements. So we may actually discuss it then. You don't need to be there, but I will take note of this. And if she's around tomorrow, then we may already discuss it then.
Sure.
Thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah. Yeah, while you're at it, Gabor, if you want to bring up, if she's around also, if you want to bring up the one about the help text in the menu link UI that we surfaced as being very long. There's a suggested wording in that issue, but it just hasn't been sort of pushed over the finish line yet.
Yeah, if you can put the link in the UX channel, that would be useful.
I will do that.
Okay. In that case, thanks everyone for coming. Keep up the great work. And as always, if you need feedback, help, then feel free to post on the UX channel. And let's see each other next week. Have a nice week.
Awesome.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you. Thanks.
Bye.